YouTube, how's it going? The Goat House is back with some more NFL trade deadline content. Already had a video go up covering the trade deadline, the big names that could come up when it comes to the trade deadline. And we'll have plenty more videos leading up to that November 3rd deadline. But in this video, I got the 5 players that NFL teams should avoid trading for, and then 5 players that maybe teams should be very interested in trading for. So we'll go over those and why they made the list. All these players at some point have come up or possibly can come up. I'm not just pulling random players, of course. But again, several more trade deadline videos on the way. We have plenty of weekly videos, power rankings, picks, plenty more. A lot going on every single day. So please subscribe. Check those videos out. Trying to reach 60K would be much appreciated. We have a Twitter. Anytime this news breaks, we talk about it on Twitter. You know, my initial thoughts come up on there first, and always live tweeting during games, my takeaways, my thoughts. So follow that, link down below. Instagram, Patreon, podcast, a lot going on. You can find links down below. That Patreon has a bunch of extra content, junior score predictions, my bets of the week for NFL and college. I do that for college as well. Score predictions, updated playoff predictions started here in week 7. And those will be continued updated, bonus content, Discord access, much more, always adding more, a lot going on there. Check it out, be much appreciated. Link in the description. So let's start with the 5 players that teams should go for, actually. Marcus Maye is the first one to come up here. I don't know if he gets traded. The Jets may not be interested. It sounds like the Jets are interested in trading almost anybody. Even Quinnen Williams' name came up, but I really don't think he's available. I think that's some BS. So I did not throw Quinnen Williams in here. But Marcus Maye is a name that came up, and it's probably because his contract is expiring. And the Jets, we don't really know what their plan is. So his name has come up, but I think it might take a bit to get Marcus Maye from the Jets. They have to like him quite a bit, but this is the first player making the list out of the 5 players that your team should be looking to trade for. Why? In the past, if you were with us in the past, Marcus Maye always played free safety, and I always kind of thought he was more of a strong safety, not really a deep guy. And now Jamal Adams left, and it ended up coming true here. Marcus Maye is kind of doing it all here, taking that Jamal Adams role, and he's played very well in the limited time playing there. So it's kind of the role that I thought he would fit. So I really like his play, and that's kind of not with the best talent around him. I do think Greg Williams is a good defensive coach, so that could help. But I think he has a lot of upside, and I think he's a really good player. So you see it, the contract details at the bottom. You see 2020, which is this year, $2 million cap hit. Obviously, that full cap hit wouldn't go to the team that he's traded for. So basically, this is it. I think another team maybe a contending team could get him if they can use it. They can use that type of utility safety, a do-it-all safety, help them contend a little more, and maybe work on a contract extension, because I think this guy is good enough to get that contract extension, and I think this guy is good enough where he has a lot of upside as well. So it's a guy I'm definitely interested on. The Jets are sellers at this point, so it's definitely somebody you should be calling the Jets about. In terms of the value, tough to say. I don't think a 4th rounder gets it done, but that's probably where I would put it. 3rd might be borderline there, but it's definitely worth the call there. If the Jets are selling, it's fourth rounder or even less for some reason. You never know with the Jets. Then I'd be buying this Marcus Maye all day. So it's definitely a guy that should be looked into here. The next on out of the 5 players that teams should be trading for, Brandon Cooks, actually, from the Texans, who was just traded in the offseason, if you remember, from the Rams to the Texans. People ripped that a little bit, and we're ripping it a little more. But his name has come up. I don't know if they trade him because they just traded for him. But remember, Bill O'Brien, he's out now, so maybe a little different thinking there with the current group. And they don't have a 1st-round pick. They traded away picks. They need to gain picks. They need to gain picks badly. So they may be open to doing this, and that's why his name has come up. But why this is a guy that you should trade for. You look at the contract, and it's pretty lengthy still. You see 2020, $8 million in cap for a cap hit. And that's this year, so about half of that will probably go to the team that's traded him, trading for him. But you look at the future: 2021, $12 million cap hit; 2022, $13 million cap hit; 2023, $14 million cap hit. And you may say, how is this a good thing? Well, he doesn't have any dead cap, so you could get rid of him at any time and that entire cap hit is freed. All of it is freed, so you don't lose anything. So it really depends on the asking price for all these guys. Trade for Brandon Cooks, I would imagine it could be a contending team like the Packers. Maybe the Saints can get Brandon Cooks back. Remember, they actually had Brandon. They drafted Brandon Cooks. He's very good on the Saints, too. Teams like that, you can name several of them. They can use him. He can help them, and he's starting to pick it up, his play, so far the last couple weeks, actually. Example, Packers, Saints, those teams could use them to help contend this year. The Saints wouldn't be able to pay him in the future, but they can cut him, and they don't really lose anything there. They don't lose anything at all. But a team like the Packers can continue to pay him. They can pay him that $12 million next year, and then use him next year, and then they can cut him, free that $13 million, free the $14 million in 2023. So it's not that much of a risk. I mean, it depends on the asking price because it doesn't end up being a rental. Do you trade a lot away? Another one that I think could be the Texans just looking to get picks. They're looking to clear some space. Spent a lot of money this offseason. Could be a fourth rounder, maybe a fourth plus, maybe a fourth, fifth, somewhere around there. But main reason, I think he can contribute to a contending team that needs a receiver. He's a talented player. And you're not really gambling a lot because you take a look at that dead cap. You're freeing all of that cap hit if you decide to move on from him. And that would be worst case scenario there. So you're not locked into anything with Brandon Cooks looking at the rest of his contract. So that's the good thing. Another player that team should be looking to trade for, Ryan Kerrigan. Let me move myself. The graphics guy didn't think this through. Let me put myself over here. But Ryan Kerrigan, the edge rusher from the Washington football team, he was a very productive pass rusher his career. A guy that I actually think can play. He's played in the 3-4, but I think he can play the 4-3 end, which they're playing more of now. Basically, he's an edge rusher in either scheme. He's not strictly a one-scheme guy. He's going to be a very solid pass rusher in either scheme. Plenty of experience, a plug-and-play guy. There's not any bring him over, let's get him into the defensive scheme, the playbook. No, he's going to be a plug-and-play guy. He's going to be productive. Maybe he's not going to be as crazy as he once was. I don't think he's too far off. I haven't really noticed any of the traits or anything really gone away. You look at his contract. So he's into the last year of his contract. Just under $12 million of a cap hit, and for this year, so it won't be that full thing. Probably a little under half of that if they trade for him at the trade deadline for his new team. So it is a rental. But you have the opportunity to extend him, obviously. But because it's a one-year expiring deal here, his trade value might not be as high as what it would be if he was under contract. And again, you have the option to extend him. But I think this is mainly for those contending teams. There's plenty of contending teams that need pass rush, and pass rush is so important. It's one of the most important things in football, and you get a solid one here. A rare one that it's rare that a guy like Ryan Kerrigan can be available. So this is definitely where, if you're a team like the Seattle Seahawks, you're a team like the Buffalo Bills, these teams that can definitely contend, but they need guys that can sack the damn quarterback. They need a guy like this desperately. It's a rare opportunity as well. You're not going to be charged a whole bunch in terms of the cap hit this year, and there's nothing to worry about in the future. Yes, if you trade for a guy like this, you may want to extend him, but you have the opportunity to do that. I think Ryan Kerrigan could turn. I mentioned the Seahawks, the Colts are a good one too. I think Ryan Kerrigan turned teams like that I just named in that even higher of a contender, better of a contender. So definitely a guy that is worth trading for in my opinion there. Moving on to the next one, Dwayne Haskins, so another Washington football team guy. I mean, you look at the contracts here. You look at 2020. Here we are in 2023 million cap hit. So obviously the team isn't going to be the full cap hit because we're halfway through the season. 2021. 3.9, 2022, 4.5. I mean, this is backup money. This is, like veteran backup money. And this you could potentially be getting. It's a little bit of a gamble, but not really because you're not losing that much money. But you potentially could be getting your future starting quarterback. It's not a guarantee. He hasn't played too well. He hasn't really had the best opportunity, the best talent around him. And again, I think he has a lot of upside. I still view him as a prospect. I thought he was a pretty good prospect. I think it'll be worth it for a team. And I think I think his value is going down right now because Washington not only benched him, but they put him at third string. They're putting in Alex Smith, with his situation in ahead of him. This new front office and coaching staff just really has they've made it known that they don't have that much interest at all in Dwayne Haskins. So it looks like the value has gone down. Now they're not desperate to trade him. necessarily. They definitely could use picks, but they don't really. They could park him on the bench and they don't really have to trade him. So it's not like they lost leverage, but the value I feel like has gone down. So if a team wants to trade a 4th or a 5th plus for like Dwayne Haskins, I think that'll be it wouldn't be a gamble. It would look like one, but to me it wouldn't. To me it would be an absolute steal and well worth it. So I would very much like the teams to trade or look into trading for Dwayne Haskins. The last player on the top 5 list that I think teams should go for, Denzel Pearman. It's kind of a sneaky one here. Expiring contract, $7.5 million of a hit. That's actually a little much for this guy, but again, it's not. You're not going to get hit with the full thing. The team that trades from, not going to get hit with the full thing here. There's a lot of teams that could be contenders that need an inside linebacker pretty badly. Actually, I think of teams like the Packers, seems like the Steelers, they lost Devin Bush, and they'll get Devin Bush back next year. That's when they don't need Pearman. So I think Pearman's definitely worthy of starting on those teams that desperately need one. There's several teams out there. But the main thing is, he's a starting caliber guy. He's nothing spectacular, starting caliber guy. But the main thing is here, he's going to be really cheap. It might take a 7th rounder. It might take a swap of picks. Maybe you swap a 6th and a 7th because the Chargers benched him. He doesn't play anymore. I think he's worthy of playing, and those teams that could use a rental guy for cheap like this that can contend, I think it's well worth it. So this is a kind of an under-the-radar guy to look out for. I think a guy like Avery Williamson from the Jets, he probably would have made the list if I wasn't really worried about injury. But that could be a good one. I think that's kind of option A for those teams, and the teams that miss on that or the teams that don't want to spend a mid or higher draft pick may look to Denzel Pearman. So it's definitely a sneaky guy to look out for at the trade deadline here. And you see, I don't think it's really high risk at all, like not even close. Now to the 5 guys that teams should not trade for, in my opinion, here at the trade deadline. Start with Alshon Jeffery. Definitely don't trade for Alshon Jeffery. Pretty wild contract, pretty common in Philadelphia with the wild contracts. So this year, 15.4 roughly million cap hit. Again, it won't be the full thing. We're halfway through the season, but that is pricey either way. Look to next year, 18.48 whatever million cap hit. You can get if you cut him, 10 million dead cap, so you actually at that point clear the 8 million, but at this point you're going to have from the cap space situation now, you're going to have much less cap space than you do now. And then pretty much you could get out of this deal no problem after 21, but that is on top of the priciness of this contract. I don't know if he has a talent. I'm sure he has talent, but I don't know if he has that talent anymore. On top of that, can he stay healthy? I don't trust him to stay healthy. I wouldn't trade. No knock on Alshon Jeffery. I'm sure he has talent, and he's had a great career, won a Super Bowl. I wouldn't trade a bag of chips for this. I'm not even being funny. I wouldn't do it. So I don't. And his name has come up a lot, but I think it's more of the Eagles trying to trade him. A little bit of desperation because they have a rough cap situation. Going forward. So they're going to load up on draft picks because draft picks are cheap cap hits in the future. No one's going to do this, and they shouldn't do it. But his name has come up. So that's why he's on the list. Don't trade for Alshon Jeffery. Next up, another former star receiver, maybe still has a good amount of talent left in him, is A.J. Green of the Bengals. His name has come up because maybe it kind of felt like he didn't really want to play for the Bengals after a couple weeks ago. You just got that feeling from him, kind of what we gathered of him staying on the sideline, or maybe he didn't say it. We don't know for sure. But in an expiring deal, and the Bengals are going younger. They have a pretty, T. Higgins is working out, kind of a similar style receiver. He's not going to be as good as A.J. Green, but he's a very promising young talent. But similar style, kind of can take that role, and they have Tyler Boyd in the slot as well, obviously. So there's multiple reasons they could trade A.J. Green, but why you shouldn't trade. Well, $18 million cap hit this year. Chunk of that, obviously, is still pretty pricey for the new team. But mainly it's going to be a rental, plain and simple. And there's really nothing wrong with rentals. We talked about a few guys that it would be a pretty good pickup if they were rentals. But in this case, I don't think it will be. You think go back to those teams that could use a receiver. As a rental, it's contender teams. It's Packers, it's Patriots, it's Saints, it's Colts. There's probably a couple other teams you could name. Those teams could, it would be okay if you traded for a rental to help them this year, but what's the asking price For a rental, I don't think it matches up. I still think the asking price is still going to be around a third-round pick. Maybe the Bengals take a fourth-round pick. Would you trade a fourth-round pick for a rental that is declining, that actually has a decent, you hate to say it, but a decent shot of getting injured during that rental period? Absolutely not. It's still a very talented guy, but for all those reasons, and you're unlikely to re-sign him. At age 33, you're unlikely to re-sign him because he's going to be asking for too much. I mean, the franchise tag was too much money for him. I did not like that at the time, so I don't like it. Again, I don't, these guys that I have it, don't trade for it. I don't think they're not talented or anything. They're very talented, some of these guys like AJ Green, but I would stay away if I were teams. If somehow they can trade a 6th, 7th round, okay, then I'm kind of all for it there. That's worth a rental. But my point is it some rentals are worth it, but trading a 3rd or 4th round pick, is it worth it for a guy that actually could get hurt during that rental period? I don't know about that. Next, another Bengals player, Geno Atkins, has been hurt, and then he came back, but they're really not playing him. This guy was a star defensive tackle. It's been about 2 years since we were calling him that, but still a very good one when he's on the field. It can be still dominant at times. So his name has come up because he's not happy that he's not playing. The Bengals are also trying to work on young guys. They're not in stage 1 of the rebuild mode, but they're somewhere in there. They got young players developing. They want more draft picks to continue to add to that. They've been drafting pretty well. They want to add to that. So it kind of makes sense that his name would come up. But I would not trade for Geno Atkins. Even he's very talented still, I think. Age 32, cap hit this year is $14 million. Cut that in half, maybe a little less than that because some bonuses were already given out by the Bengals, so it's going to be a little less than half. But that's still a pretty pricey hit. Look at next year, $14.8 million cap hit. You see the dead cap is 5.2. So if you cut him, you lose 5.2. You actually clear space at that time. 14.8 minus 5.2. That's how much you save, but not from this point. You actually would have 5.2 less cap from this point. So you would lose money basically. The team that's trading from you would definitely lose a lot of money. Is my point. And the same thing. The year after, $16 million, not a whole bunch of dead cap, so it wouldn't be that bad at that point if you cut him. But you're basically trading for a guy that's aging, declining, and that's a pretty pricey cap hit. I just can't find any teams that it could be worth it as a rental if you want to trade a pick and surrender that cap hit that you're going to have in the future if you go with the rental option. But I'm not finding any teams that either would want to do that or can do it. Because those need to match up. You obviously need to want to do it. Like you have a need. You think you contend with this guy, but can you do it? Do you have the cap space to do it? And you can't find all those things going together. So I don't think any teams will be able to do this. I don't think they should either because of the caps, mainly because the cap hit situation here, going to teams' cap space situations. So, and I don't know if Atkins. Again, he could be very solid still, but is he going to make or break your team? Is that a guy that's going to do that? Well, I shouldn't say break, but is he really going to make your team? He could. So it's just not the contract you really want to trade for at this moment. Not finding any teams that would make sense. Another one, Kyle Rudolph, the Vikings tight end, has come up in trade discussions. Actually, I actually heard that teams are calling the Vikings because they now sounds like the Vikings are sellers, so teams are calling them about their players. Kyle Rudolph had a couple teams call about him, and it's understandable because he's probably one of the better red zone options actually in the NFL still at his age. Spectacular catch guy in the red zone, so he definitely can help a team in the red zone. That is for sure. He is aging, he's declining. He's not going to really help your team in kind of in the open field. I mean, he can, but he's not really going to help you all that much. It's mainly and he's really good red zone guy. But I look at the cap situation here, his contract situation. $8 million this year, over $8 million. So it's not going to be that pricey for this team this year. But you look at next year, 9.4, then 10.2, then 11 point. So that's a big cap hit. That's like up there at the top tier tight ends of cap hit. The good news is you can get out of it. You see the dead cap, maybe not next year, it's not worth it, but down in the 22, the 23 range when he's 32 and 33, there's not that much dead cap. So you actually could save quite a bit of money by cutting him then. But is Kyle Rudolph really a guy that you want to rent for 2020 and 2021? Again, he's going to be a really good red zone target. That's a really good one, but that's about it. Is it worth renting? And for some teams, it could be. I can see him being really good with the Patriots. I think the Patriots could be much better with him. I think they'll get a really good red zone target. But is getting Kyle Rudolph going to make you a Super Bowl contender? That's what you got to ask yourself. Is it worth it for trading a pick and then dealing with the contract? It's not the worst contract because you can kind of get out of it, but trading a pick for a guy you want to get out of in a couple years doesn't sound good. Another thing is the Vikings got quite a bit of attachment to him, I feel like. I don't think it's going to be cheap to get him in terms of what you're trading. Some people are probably thinking a late-round pick. The Vikings are definitely going to ask for more than that. So for what the Vikings are asking and what his contract says, I'd probably stay away. But it would be entertaining to see him on some of these other teams like the Patriots I mentioned, but you can mention some other teams. And then the last player that you should avoid trading for is David Johnson. His name has come up quite a bit. Another guy that the Texans just traded for, but they're trying to go reverse here. They're trying to go the opposite direction. They're trying to gain picks. Season isn't going to plan. They don't have a bunch of picks. They don't have a first rounder. They need to gain picks. Not going to be able to get that first rounder back, but trading David Johnson would be fantastic for the Texans, but I don't think for any other teams. This year, just north of $11 million cap hit. Again, the team won't be hit with all of that if they trade for him. And then in 21, it's a $9 million cap hit, $2 million dead cap. So if let's say he's on the Texans still next year or in the offseason, they cut him, they'll actually clear $7 million. So 9. You minus the 2.1, they'll clear $7 million. If a team trades for them, they can do the same thing, but obviously it's a little less than what they had to begin with. The main reason why is it worth it? Is another situation? Is David Johnson going to make a team a Super Bowl contender? I think you only trade for guys like this if you think it's gonna help you for sure take that next step. I don't think a good running back. I don't think he's going to make you take that next step, especially because he's a running back on top of it. It's just not worth it. It is just not worth it. Maybe I don't even know if it's a cheap pick. It's just not something that's going to make your team. It's not going to make a team. It's not worth trading a pick. It's not worth dealing with even if it's not the biggest cap hit. It actually is for a running back. It's pretty big, but it's just not worth it. So that's why, I'm going to give it a no for David Johnson as well. So that wraps it up for the 5 I want teams to look into, and I had 5 I don't want teams to look into trading for by the trade deadline here. All these guys' names have come up at one point. I wasn't just pulling random names out. Maybe some of them could be smoke. Maybe some names come up again, don't come up again. Maybe none of them even get traded for or away. We will see. But again, we already have a trade deadline video up on the channel talking about the big names and where they can go. We're going to have more videos come up. We're going to talk about who could be buyers, sellers in terms of teams. We're going to talk about maybe a video with one move each NFL team should make at the trade deadline, even though every team won't, but it'll still be a good idea, pretty fun. So plenty of videos. And then once all goes down, we'll have trade grades as long as there's some big trades that happen, and we'll have you covered on Twitter right when all that happens as well, so you're going to want to follow that. But that's going to do it for this one. Thanks, everyone, for watching. Goodbye.